Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our fourth episode of the Future of Intermodal. Here's our host, Mr. Frank Sonzala.
Thank you, Natalia. I'm very happy to be here today with our fourth podcast. And yesterday we had our event, which was our rebranding and manufacturing debut of the new CIE Manufacturing Incorporated. As you can see, we have a new logo, which is a shield with a American eagle and a bright star, because the star of the entire intermodal chassis is the CIE chassis, manufactured now in America. Sitting on the couch with me today are three of the people that were key to making this event such a popular event. Could I have you introduce yourselves and give your titles so that everybody knows what you do for CIE Manufacturing Incorporated?
Sure, my name is Missy Pinksaw, and I'm the Director of Marketing.
Trevor Ash, Executive Vice President, Sales and Marketing.
Gary Anderson, have operational responsibilities.
All right, great. Well, thank you for being in here. The three of you have been in the industry for some time, and so this is a question to all of you. How did you get into the industry, and give me a little bit of history? Who would like to start off?
I'll jump in, I guess. So for me, I'm going to blame you for getting me into this industry. Prior to joining CIMC in 2016, I spent the majority of my career in the heavy equipment and crane business. Previous to joining CIMC, I was a member of IANA, and we were repping a container stacking product, and that's where I happened to meet yourself. And then when you came over to CIMC in 2016, not long after, I followed, and that would be my introduction to the transportation side of the business, and definitely most importantly into intermodal.
And that was about almost 10 years ago, or maybe?
Yeah,
better.
I think I joined IANA in 2010, yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's
And I met you the very first year, yeah.
I thought myself that this guy needed to be taken by the ear and put around the IANA.
Needed some guidance.
And now, I know that you don't want to brag about it, but now you sit on the board of directors there.
Yeah, I was recently elected to the board of directors, and a supplier seat was just installed. Actually, we had our first board meeting 2 weeks ago in Charleston.
Perfect. Missy?
Well, my whole intermodal education started with CIMC about 5 years ago, when I was hired to do all of the administrative duties for our East Coast facility.
And that is where?
In Emporia, Virginia.
All right.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. And it was kind of a shotgun education, and I couldn't be happier about it. So I started doing the HR and payroll functions and invoicing and things like that. And within 3 months, I started overseeing logistics. And so that involved negotiating drayage to and from the ports and working with the drivers and the trucking companies. And then slowly but surely, I worked into marketing. And so it was a transition, which I absolutely love because I got to know every single part of our business.
Well, is it true that you had so many hats at the beginning that you were getting tired of putting them on and off and on and off and on and off? So you said, please, can I just do marketing and I can take care of things from there?
Absolutely. What I did was I tried them all, and then I found the one that I loved the most.
I think we're going to give her back a couple of hats with that list this time.
No,
We know we can lean on to help us out.
Yeah.
Well,
But
the thing is, she has a well-rounded background within our company.
She knows our company.
And she's done a great job there, and you're doing a great job in marketing too. We're very, very, very proud of you.
Well, thank you.
Gary, how long do we know each other?
We met, I guess, for the first time in Atlanta, is that right?
Yes,
Whenever you were working for PSI,
yes.
and we actually did a handshake deal
Mm-hmm.
for several thousand units at that point in time. So I entered the industry, I worked in the retail side for trailer manufacturer for 5 years. And then after that, transitioned to the fleet side for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Had all the maintenance and procurement responsibilities. And then now been in the consulting side for the last 4 years. The vast majority of that time spent working with you and CIMC.
I know that we do go back a long way, and it's been a pleasure having you on board here because your responsibilities are kind of endless, aren't they? I mean, every time something comes up, I look around, where's Gary? Right?
The responsibilities come a long ways from what our original agreement was.
I think we could have taken up the full podcast if we had to get the intro like Missy's.
You know, things evolve, and speaking of evolving, the intermodal industry has really evolved. and the people sitting on this couch are very much responsible for that. The thing is, we were an assembly plant, and we were doing assembly, and we were doing the retail products, 53 foot for the domestic markets, and then of course all the marine chassis and some specialty ones in between, extendables. I think first let's talk about the transition into the factory. What about the new CIE factory? What's so different about having a factory that is manufacturing and a factory that is a regular warehouse and assembly plant?
I think the difference in what we're doing today versus what we were doing when we were CIMC Intermodal Equipment is we were basically buying a fully assembled frame, lighting, and all the operational systems all combined. The difference in this process today is that we're actually taking and just buying the frame from a supplier that is CIMC in China, and then all the balance of it is going to be fully assembled with North American made products. So the assembly process is probably where the big difference is.
You know, in the assembly process, I think we'll probably have a little bit of video here with the assembly line and the staging and a lot more materials in there,
Yeah.
cranes and hoists and all kinds of things, right?
So we basically took and divided the whole assembly process into 5 different stations and broke everything up to where we could do it in 15-minute intervals going down the assembly line. We also sat back and evaluated what the best technology is that we needed to incorporate into the assembly line. So for example, in the axle assembly station, we've made the investment in the 5-spindle and the 4-spindle computerized torquing machines. And then the other piece that we've really focused on the assembly line, especially in the axle point, is the number of touch points that goes down the assembly line. So that we actually are only touching the axle twice. Nothing is ever being lifted by anybody on the entire assembly line. Everything's done via hoist or crane. So as you go down the assembly line, you're going to go into station 2 where we're marrying the main frame up with the axles and the springs. At the same time, simultaneously, the landing gears are being mounted. Then that moves on to where we start focusing on the operational systems, installing all the air, electrical, alignments, brake adjustments, etc. And then we move forward to the identification area to where we actually install customer decals, mud flaps, VIN plates, all the thing that's going to make that unit specific. Then we go, and also the next station we go is the QC inspection, where we'll do all the air, electrical, and 121 testing. And then the final stage is a QC, where we do 125-point inspection. And then
125-point inspection.
125-point inspection, yes, sir.
Wow.
At that same time, we make sure all the data has been collected from all of the other machines that we need for documentation.
Yesterday, when we had the crowd go through after the flag raising, the national anthem, the convocations, and of course, for all of you that weren't there, we were doing this simultaneously with our Emporia plant. So everybody was on a closed circuit TV between the 2 companies, and it actually worked without a flaw for first time. I got to knock on wood here, you know.
Don't jinx us.
Yeah, we were trying to. We always worry about the IT. Not that there's wrong with the IT department, but the idea is that electrical things can go wrong. A lot of the people, when they were walking through, the very first thing they said when they got to the end of the line and the inspections and everything else, they said, "This is a safe plant. I've never been in a plant that is like a hospital. You could eat off the floor, it's a clean operation, everything is marked where no one can get hurt." But one thing that I really like is our pits, so that you can do over and under manufacturing processes. It was so well lit and everything. I've been in the places where the pit is just, okay, here's your pit, go in there and work, put a coal miner's hat on. Trevor, what do you have to say about that?
Biggest thing I took away from the tours yesterday and the feedback was the ergonomic setup of it all. Everybody between the tables and everything else, everybody's working like this. They're not working above their heads, they're not bent over, they're working at waist height, nice, comfortable, and very safe. Everything, nobody's doing heavy lifting, all the cranes are there to move components, everything moves very safely, and it's just going to make for a better product because the employees are going to be happier.
Well, I think the thing that struck me the most too is we had our fellow teammates from the production line actually presenting at every stage.
Absolutely.
And they were impressive. They knew what every station did. They knew how long it took. They took pride in their work. And it was wonderful to hear them speak about it. It was wonderful for them to have the opportunity to put out there the love of their job and how important it was for them to be safe. That to me was the most tremendous part.
I think the way we topped it off yesterday, after everybody got to go through every workstation, I think we had 7 groups went through, and one of the workstations was actually not a workstation, was the completed Revere chassis, and it was off to the side. And we had one of our sales guys, Al Anderson, who's been with us now about a year.
Coming up on a year, about 8-9 months, yeah.
Okay, 8-9 months. And he was doing the presentation, had a lot of questions that people asked. I think let's talk about the Revere right now. I mean, that is one of the things that we're going to be manufacturing here, and a lot of American content and North American content. Basically, who would like to take that first?
I mean, it's a passion for me, so I'll jump in on that. I mean, we embarked on this endeavor probably in June of 18, I think. We sat down as a group, as a leadership group, and my biggest thing was, what's our next pivot? You know, we had, beat the drum about best in class with quality welds and KTL paint with the introduction of our new Dongguan facility in 2016 with its opening. But, we beat that drum to death a little bit because it was, it was a definitive closure. It really separated us from the market. So we needed to decide what our next step was going to be. And what we landed on was that we wanted to continually push the intermodal evolution, where people recognize the chassis now as a revenue generating asset versus necessity evil. And that the market was realizing that, we need to standardize with ABS and, LED lights and radial tires and so on and so forth. So we felt that the market was ready for a premium product. So then we reached out to all the top tier 1 suppliers, and we had a showcase where we brought them all in, and they sat in meetings with the senior management group, technical people, operational people, sales and marketing people, and they brought us what the latest and greatest was for them, where they thought and their products were going, whether it be technology or component wise. And we took all that data and analyzed it and then landed on a spec. And it's what we have today is the Revere. We've got probably not only the lowest cost of ownership, but the safest chassis in the marketplace right now. The initial market reaction's been tremendous, and we hope that 2020 is going to be the big breakout year, and we're already seeing great success in the initial stages here.
I think it's one of the few chassis, it's, in my opinion, the only chassis that couples multiple things together. You've got the KTL process, you've got the robotics process, you've got the long extended warranty program, and then obviously we focused on the total cost of ownership, as Trevor pointed out, which is very important for all customers, but especially the smaller customers that may not have the maintenance facilities or the infrastructure to support it.
Perfect.
And I think too, it's a concept that we'll keep building on all the time. We're going to get feedback from our customers, we're going to see what they need for their business, and we'll keep creating things that meet that demand.
But we also position ourselves with the Revere product too, that it can continue to evolve, because we're seeing the introduction of like you mentioned earlier, we were having a discussion earlier today about electrification, the telematics piece. I mean, the biggest buzzword in our industry right now is about telematics. I mean, everything is ready on this chassis to adapt telematics and start giving real-time feedback. So we're positioned as the industry starts to adopt the new technologies, our chassis will be the first one ready to accept it and be ready to give that feedback.
Missy, nothing else has this many benefits, this many selling points. So how hard is your marketing job?
I was going to say, this is a marketing dream.
I'm honored, yeah.
Yeah, no, so this is
What do you do
fantastic.
today, anyways?
It helps sell itself. What we're going to do is this trade show season and throughout the whole marketing campaigns for 2020, we just want to get more word out about the Revere and all of the benefits and the safety that it brings to customers, and the total low cost of ownership. So I'm just going to take what these guys have created and we'll get it out there.
I think part of the total cost of ownership piece that people need to take into consideration is the uptime that you have. Because the issue that they have with some of the older chassis, you have a lot of operational downtime, as we were speaking in the meeting earlier this morning. So uptime is a big deal.
Yeah, the operational benefits are huge. I mean, if I can turn 4 containers versus 3, and I do that every week or every day, what's the benefit of that?
When you think about it, the 26 and a half years old, maybe it's approaching 27-year-old now, is the average age of some chassis out there. They shouldn't be on the road at 27. not 27
We're not
years
safe.
at all.
And especially
Not
with the
safe.
technology that was available at that point in time.
Yes, that technology is so old. It's bias tires and incandescent lights and no automatic slack adjusters and things like that. Really, really not the way to go. So I'm so happy to be in this industry and being the leader in this industry. What events are you going to be going to?
Well, so we traditionally always want to have a large presence at TMC with our friends from the ATA. IANA are one of our largest industry organizations in September. We're also going to have another large event in Canada. We're going to have an event there with our dealers. We're going to partner with our dealers. For
That's right around the corner, isn't it?
It is. It's in April, the beginning of April, April 13th, and that's called Truck World. And that's going to be a fantastic event, and people should plan on attending.
And where is that held?
That is in
Toronto. It's the Canadian's largest truck show, and it rotates from year to year. 1 year in Montreal,
And what I
1 year in
didn't want
Toronto.
to try to say was it's Mississippiqua?
No, Mississauga.
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 So I wasn't even going to try, but
Okay.
Toronto.
Yeah.
That's
North of the
that's a
border.
good bailout right there.
Let's just go north of the border.
Yeah. Because I love the Riviera, I want to get back though too for 1 second.
Yep.
And just we listen to the customers too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of their pain points are about maintenance and how long they own them. So we talk about the average year. Well, also the customers fed back to us that they'd appreciate these assets somewhere between 15 and 22 years depending on the model. So then we offer a warranty that we all know warranties like almost like insurance, but I've got you covered now with insurance for up to half the depreciation period.
Right.
And then what I can do is, because of the componentry and the long-lasting life components that we're using, I reduce that maintenance cost, which ends up being, as we learned from our lease customers, a big portion of that lease rate that goes in there. So if they can offer that, they can be more competitive in their space.
Well, I think you already answered my next question, which what is the biggest advantage for the customers when you're buying a CIE chassis?
I mean, you're getting unparalleled quality,
Right.
warranty. Our dealer network with the after-sale support that it offers, that no one's going to be able to match that in the business. You're buying security.
Well, and I think you're also buying some technology that's in the manufacturing process back to the KTL and the robotics piece as well.
Talia, do you have something?
I just want to make everyone aware of the time constraints that these three worked under. Could you go into that, especially you, Gary, because I remember being at those first meetings, those initial meetings when CIE 1.0 was just on the PowerPoints and we were trying to figure out how we're going to do this thing. And that was only a couple of months ago. So could you explain to everyone what you had to do in the short amount of time that you did?
So our first meeting was late September.
Yeah.
Is when we went over, and then it took about a month to finally say that we're going to go forward with a assembly line, I think is what the time frame was. It was actually pretty complicated because we had to go through and start understanding the processes that we were doing at DCBC.
Yeah.
So we had a team go over, evaluated that whole process, also reached out to several different industry engineers to get some input on what they felt like would be the best way to handle our particular product. And then we started working with equipment and tooling manufacturers to start figuring out what tools we needed for technology purposes, and then started putting all that together.
And what about for marketing?
For our department, the most important part was designing the new logo, coming up with what our new logo would look like. That was the most intensive part of everything.
Yes, it
We had
was.
a lot of internal discussion about it. After that, it's just a process of implementing the logo into all the different avenues, but the most important thing was the logo and a little bit about the meaning behind the logo. We knew we wanted a shield. We knew that we wanted something that symbolized protection for us from a number of different things that might affect us in the future. Once we came up with that beautiful design, the rest was all about implementing. We'll continue to do that in phases as we go along.
Good news is we had the reinvention in 2019 of Emporia, Southgate, and then the open house experience to prepare for this.
That's true.
One of the biggest things, takeaway that I liked was that, the sales and marketing team, i.e. myself, was involved with Gary and his team as we embarked on the process. So they've got the sales and marketing input, or a lot from sales about, what we need to see, things that we can sell and the key points that the customers are going to want to see from a manufactured product from CIE Manufacturing. So we got to put some input on that, which I think is going to drive more value for the customer with the finished product.
I think, another interesting thing is there's not a handbook or a rule book that come with this. It's just, here's your challenge, go at it.
Yeah.
And obviously, as Trevor just touched on, we had to work with sales and marketing to understand what products we're actually going to assemble or build. And the assembly line that we did put together, we can do 20, 23s, 33s, 40, 45s, and 53s as well. So it's a assembly line that is pretty diversified. The steps that we took, number one, as Frank, you and I talked about, we had a huge concern with safety when we first started our endeavor 3 or 4 years ago. And safety was a huge problem in this plant. Again, as I touched on earlier, we have touch points is a big deal. Efficiency was number 2. How are we going to be efficient about this whole process? Because that ties into safety. The third thing, and a very important item, is quality control, as we already touched on the new assembly line. Last comment I want to make is, I'm extremely proud of all the people in the plant.
Yeah.
They have busted their tails. They've worked nights and weekends.
Absolutely.
I mean, and they've got an assembly line today that's a showcase. I mean,
Yes.
it's not my deal; it's their deal. They own it, and you go out there and talk to it. Missy touched on earlier. They can tell you what's going on with that assembly line, which is ownership. And to me, that's the most important thing that I told them, is ownership.
They're engaged and they're empowered to do their job the right way and to be in the right place with a work ethic like I've never seen before. The volunteering to work on Saturdays and Sundays to get the job done. And,
Yeah.
I mean, and actually worrying about the fact that we may not make it on time and we have to make it on time. And that, to me, you don't see that in every company.
The interesting thing about this whole process is the people that work in that plant, the technicians, along with the supervisors, were coming forward with better ideas than I could have ever had. There's absolutely no way we could have completed this new assembly line without the management team in Southgate. You have Herman, Henry, Osvaldo, George, Humberto, Johnny, Robert, Gerald, and obviously Pat helped oversee the whole project as well.
You thrown us curveballs and we still came in.
We went ahead and kind of bumped heads a little bit, but we, at the end of the day, we all saw the big roadmap and we all put together to go ahead and finish off the project.
So there was a lot of teamwork. There's a lot of people, willing to stay and get things done.
And I think that's just absolutely amazing to me.
I think the whole theme we're seeing here is that we came up with a mini tagline a few years ago that was one team, one dream.
Right.
What you see here is we continue that whole theme of teamwork. None of these things in the short time periods that we're given can happen without the teamwork
Yes.
These aren't just taglines. These are some of the core values of the
Yeah,
company.
exactly.
If you think about, every initiative that we've taken on, whether it's taking it to the next level,
Yeah.
we continue to take it to the next level.
6
One
to
team,
60.
one dream. Everybody has a voice here in the company, and we listen. You know what I mean? 6 to 60. We're on an endeavor to, dominate our space, and these are the core values
But I
of our
think
company.
the fact that we've improved our communication. If you think about the prayer that Eric had yesterday in the ceremony,
Yes.
he touched on 6 to 60. That's a technician that works on the floor in Emporia. That was pretty cool, I thought.
I caught that too.
That
I
was
thought
real
that
cool.
was great.
And we also had a prayer in Spanish.
Yes.
Yes.
And I think that went over well. In fact, one of the ladies in the audience that was here from our Chamber of Commerce, she got very emotional over it because someone that in her office had died and was going to be here today or yesterday, and she was just touched by what we do. And this is what we do here. We believe in being very employee-oriented, but we also believe in the family unit. The logo, I'm very, very proud of you all coming up with that logo. The shield for the protection against not just tariffs. Tariffs had something to do with it, but you can't really sell easily when you have to buy 5 to get 4. So that's really tough. And maybe the tariffs will go away soon, we hope. We don't worry about it now because we're not going to be tariffed. But on the other side, we have the American Eagle, and this symbols how we soar above everybody else. We're up here at the 20,000 foot level looking down at the rest of it, and we're having our plans going into 2020 and beyond. That is important to me. And of course the star, Well, the star and the red, white, and blue, this is as American as you can get. And I want to, once again, thank you all for working on this so diligently, so hard, and coming up with a sign, because one day I hope that this becomes the Nike swoosh of the trailing
space.
product industry. And all you'll see is this out there, and you'll know that's a CIE product. To that, I want to raise a glass here of this ginger ale. A little hoarse throat here, I need a little drink. And cheers.
Cheers.
And tell you what, we're ready for 2020 and beyond.
Yes.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Great work.
Oh, say, can you see?
We operate in the global economy, and 4 chassis for the price of 5 in sales is a big deterrent. However, we started to think of what else could impact our sales other than the tariffs, such as a natural disaster, war, or a maritime shipping strike. Because of this, we had to shield ourselves from any and all outside influences that could hamper our great product from the marketplace, thus the symbolic shield on our new logo. That shield is the essence of our protection against anything disrupting our business ever again.
I want to touch on one thing. Trevor, I knew we were going to be working together at some point in time because we kind of think alike. And
He's the best salesman ever. He managed to keep me, about 7 years we said we were going to do this before I actually came to work together.
Well, you know, I've been very lucky in my life. People have been very good to me, and I seem to be able to surround myself with the best of the best all the time. And when I came here in March of 2016, we had 6 dealers, and within 6 weeks, I got rid of all 6 of them. They had the greatest product, and they didn't sell anything. When we got to that point of trying to put together a dealer network, it was Trevor's challenge. Trevor, tell us how that dealer network works.
My sales career started with Caterpillar, as where my formal sales training came from. So, you know, in my mind, I had an old sales coach that used the line, what good looks like. So I leaned on my experience from working within the Caterpillar dealer network and took some of the high points from it and tried to implement it here. The other biggest thing that we wanted to lean on was the synergies within our CIMC branded companies, and wanted to leverage the name. I mean, Caterpillar's synonymous with heavy equipment. CIMC in the logistics business is synonymous. I mean, we're the world's largest trailer manufacturer, we're container box manufacturer, and numerous other things. So, I mean, we wanted to leverage that brand. So we went out and we embarked on partnering with other CIMC branded dealerships that represent some of our other products. And then we went out and in areas that didn't work, we engaged some of the industry leaders. I mean, we have Kenworth dealerships that rep our products. We've had great success in some key markets with Hale up and down the eastern seaboard. We've got Aloka in Chicago, which is like the inland intermodal hub outside of a port destination.
Yes, yes.
We've got National Chassis out here in California, and you know, all of our partners from the conception of this, of gassing all the existing dealerships because of non-performance, and now we've got a striving dealer network that's up to about 15 dealers with 62 plus locations. So with that, I mean, we are able to offer, you know, best in class after sales support, because all of our dealers carry our parts and are trained to work on our chassis.
I really have one last question here for this segment of our podcast. What do you find most rewarding about the work that you do for CIE Manufacturing Incorporated?
I think the thing that's most rewarding for me is being able to see people grow, empower them, and help mentor them. I'm not really an I person, as you very well know, so it's important to me to help people see which direction they need to go, help them get there. That aspect of it is extremely important to me.
And I had alluded to it before, but for me, I'm getting such an education. Every day I learn more and more about the industry. I meet fantastic people who I learn something from every day. I see how we're impacting the industry, how we're leading the industry. So for me, every day is a learning experience and continuing to grow. I love it.
I'd say the most rewarding thing is I think what we're doing here with our products, our people, we are really leading the intermodal industry in what we do. We're not a follower.
Well, from that movie, you're either first or you're last.
Yes.
The next section here is a little bit more personal about you. We're going to learn a little bit about music, sports, but the first part is another business question. And we call this, what do we call this section?
Bottoms up.
Bottoms up.
Yes.
And it is really something about in your career, whatever career, it doesn't have to be here, but could, during your life, something that has been a problem and is kind of the low spot, and it was a problem for you. And how did you get over that, control it, turn it around to be a positive or something better than you ever imagined?
It's something that actually is related to the intermodal industry. I recall probably 20 years ago, let's go that route, where we were trying to get into the intermodal business with a transportation company, and we were faced with a bunch of negatives. You can't do this, you can't do that. You can't have a 48 to 53 foot extendable. At that point in time, all the containers were being made domestically out of Duraplate or some other product. Aluminum plates, if you will, the first ones.
Right.
So we were really down at that point in time because we were getting hit with so many negatives, having so many issues. Leakage was a big problem at that point in time. We took on and started trying to figure out how to start getting involved with the steel container. And there was a lot of naysayers at that point inside the company and the industry that the steel container would actually be the direction that we needed to go. And taking that piece on and having to deal with all the negativity was actually, it wore you out pretty quick because of all the negativity around that. So.
And so the steel container?
The steel container today, obviously, was in place before we started buying them. But now it is definitely taken over, and all your composite metals and aluminum plates are all gone. So
Okay.
At that point in time, containers were coming over in bulk ships at 250 to 500 at a time, which would create operational issues, higher shipping costs, etc. So actually, Mr. Mai was involved in this project, and the saying that we had at that point in time is, "He who has the freight's going to win this deal."
Yeah.
And it proved out because CIMC was able to put the logistics program together to where we went from 250 to 500 containers in a bulk ship at a time to being able to ship, and I think we got as high as 72 to 73% loaded with cargo. So that's when you ask about at a low point or a challenging point, and then how it turned into something exceptional. And that's definitely a good example of it.
I remember in my early 30s, the job that I was working at, and I'll just say the early 30s was like yesterday, even though it's not, but many years ago. But I remember I was in a job, and I was very comfortable in that job, but I was very unhappy. But I was paid enough where I knew I wouldn't leave unless I was forced to leave. Well, the week before Christmas, I was let go.
Oh my gosh.
So it was horrific. I was just, I was single, I was on my own, it was absolutely horrific. And then I ended up getting a job that I probably wouldn't have picked first, but I needed a job. It was a job right next to where my future husband was working.
Ah.
Who later we moved to Emporia for one of his jobs. So without that happening, the course of my life would have shifted significantly.
Absolutely.
And I wouldn't be where I
see?
am today. So it was definitely a negative that turned out to be the best positive ever.
It just goes to show you that everything happens for a reason.
Absolutely.
And usually there's a good reason. You just don't know it when it happens.
Oh, you don't know, no.
You know?
My story would be the last job for me, some things were changing internally, and it was time for me to make a move at the time, and we were getting very close to working together during the PSI days. So literally, I wanted to branch out. I wanted to take a try at running my own business, which was, I have a young family, give up my job and got no income. You know what I mean? It was scary, and so I started off in the process, and we were really close, and I get this phone call. From Frank. Frank's been in China doing some work. We weren't able to communicate while he was over there. He comes back, he says, good news, bad news. And I'm like, oh, here we go. I'm like, give me the bad news, I want to get it out of the way. Well, he's like, I'm leaving PSI, and before he could give me the good news,
He went
there's
off.
a bunch. I went through a litany of different expletives that we can't really probably are not fit for a podcast. And then after I finally came off the ledge, he talked me down. He gave me the good news, and he's like, "I'm no longer going to be the best number 2 in the business. I'm going to be the number 1, and I need a number 2." He says, "I'd like for you to wait." Well, I'm like, I've waited 7+ years. I'm like, I think I can wait another 60 or so days. That's led us on the path here today, and I mean, the last 4 years for me have really been exciting, and I've grown a lot in this role underneath Frank and the team, and I've learned a lot, and I've been able to take on some of the things I want to do. This job and this opportunity's afforded me that, so thank you for making me wait a little longer.
Well, it was
Cheers
meant to
to
be.
Frank.
It was
Yeah, there you go. There's a cheers.
Yeah, another cheers, yes.
To Frank.
To Frank,
Right.
the collector.
Yes.
Oh.
And he came up with a great collection.
But that speaks volumes about our company, though, how we never just take an answer for no. You know what I mean? Or like you said, you're not going to be able to do this, you're not going to be able to do that. We have the brain power and the willingness to, let's attack this. Just because it's never been done doesn't mean it can't be done. Yeah.
A good example is a new assembly line.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, even though we were talking about it for, ever since I got here, we started talking about manufacturing in the United States. And I thought that we could manufacture in the United States and compete with products coming from anywhere in the world, coming from China. And I remember people totally laughing at me that that would never happen and it could never be done. That's all I have to hear. We're coming in with numbers that are amazingly good. We're coming in with production numbers that are amazingly good. How many can we put out in a day? I mean, with one shift?
One shift, we can, on one assembly line, we can produce 30 and go 2 shifts, 60, 3, 90. That's per assembly line.
Per factory too.
And
Right.
per factory.
So basically 180 could be done a day in full production,
In full production.
Yeah, 3 shift, both locations.
both
Yeah.
locations.
Nice.
I think 180 a day, I challenge any competitor to do that. Or to build the plants to do that, or put in the machinery to do that, or train the people to do that.
Nobody invests in the business like we do. I mean, and we don't wait for the business to come to us. I mean, our Dongguan facility, when we opened it in 16, we didn't have the business. And then within 3 years, we maxed out its production capabilities.
Right.
Now, you know, forget tariffs. We were on this path for this manufacturing facility because we have the demand and we continue to invest in our business. Unlike our competitors, you know, when they had an opportunity, when they, you know, kicked us in the butt with tariffs, instead they try to take advantage of the customer. What do? We reinvest in our company again and we double down because we're here for the long haul for our customer.
Absolutely. And with that, I want another toast.
Yes.
CIE
I like this
Manufacturing.
Yeah.
I know.
Taking a good turn.
Well, you know what?
Cheers.
Cheers.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our show. Here's our host, Mr. Frank Sonzala.
Thank you, Natalia. Natalia, what is this next segment coming up?
Our next segment is our sports segment. So it's called Sports in 60 Seconds, and that's when each guest tells about their favorite sports team, why, in 60 seconds or less.
Okay, so each of you gets 60 seconds, so it's going to be a 3-minute drill here. Go ahead, sports in 60 seconds, Trevor.
Well, if I don't say hockey, they won't let me back in the country. So hockey's my sport. I just think it's the best sport.
You play hockey too?
Yeah, still play. My son's playing right now.
Yes,
so
he scored a goal.
Yeah, he scored his first full ice goal here
Nice.
as the
Nice.
Milton Winterhawks 2011 AE team. And then my daughter plays in an all-girls league, the Halton Twisters.
Wow.
So we got a hockey family. My my wife's a crazy hockey mom, as they put it in Canada.
Yeah.
And it's just the best sport. I think it molds young youth into better people as great adults. There's a lot of structure. It's about being part of a team. There's just so many benefits. I attribute hockey to a lot of the person that I became as I grew up.
Perfect. Missy?
So, I live in a Pittsburgh household. My husband was born and raised in Western Pennsylvania. So, through osmosis, I have now become a Pittsburgh fan of every sport. So, we have the Steelers. I think my favorite nod to Trevor here is to go to a Penguins hockey game.
Oh, wow,
It is-
yeah.
It is the best experience, the fights and the action, and it's fantastic.
The
We ha-
fights.
Fights.
She said the fights
It's only,
first.
it's only
Old
sport.
school hockey.
Yeah,
that's
it's only
great.
sport where it's still allowed, so it's great. We have a little Yorkshire Terrier named Crosby.
All right.
So-
Wow.
It's
Syndicate?
everywhere. Yeah, so so I would say anything Pittsburgh in my household is where it's at.
All right. Well, I grew up as a pirate fan.
Oh yeah.
Back in the Roberto Clemente days.
Mhm.
So
He
I
loved
still have that in my heart, and
Yeah.
Clemente still, I think, is one of the greatest ball players of all time. That his life too was taken by a crash.
It
Time.
was, yeah.
Gary.
Gary.
Well, obviously from Arkansas, Razorbacks. No, we've attended the basketball games for probably almost 30 years
Mhm.
and attend a sizable number of the football games.
Good.
Born and raised in that area, so that's definitely where my passion would be when it comes to sports. We don't have any professional teams in that area, so.
But if you had a professional team, which one would you pick?
Well, if I don't say Dallas, I'll be in trouble, so I'll say Dallas.
There you go. All right.
Stay safe.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people in Arkansas in that area are Dallas Cowboys.
Well,
What's
they're in
the
Dallas or
affiliation
Kansas
there?
City.
What's the affiliation there?
Well, Mr. Sports Person, if you knew this, Jerry Jones is the owner.
Yes.
He didn't play football at the University of Arkansas. Boom.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Football? What is football? I mean, hockey, man, it's only sport.
This is a music segment. I'll start off with Missy.
Yeah.
Okay, so I like many different genres of music, but by far my favorite is Motown.
Oh,
I'm
I know who's your woman,
a huge
Lee.
Motown
Okay.
fan. What great music.
yeah.
Yeah, the best I've been to, we were talking about the Eagles earlier. I love the Eagles. I've been to a concert. My husband and I saw a concert at the Hippodrome in Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the Shy Lights and the Stylistics and Cuba Gooding Jr. and the main ingredient. And it was the best night, best concert I've ever been to.
Oh,
You
wow.
did surprise me.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I knew I would.
I bet you
I
that'd
didn't
be
see that.
It was
great.
fantastic.
I
Yeah,
think that'd be great. Well, thank you very much for sharing that with us.
absolutely.
Gary?
I enjoy music, but I don't really have a certain group or type. I mean, like I was telling them earlier, I like Eagles, Hotel California. Jimmy Buffett fan, just
Yeah.
because it kind of takes you south
Parrot
a little
Head?
bit.
Yeah.
Easier
So
times.
I probably have a story to tell. So when I was in, I don't know, 5th, 6th grade, I played the drums, and I was absolutely terrible at it. So that's when I decided to start playing sports instead.
Okay.
So I've never played a musical instrument other than drums in 5th or 6th grade. But one thing I do have is I have multiple music instruments in my office at home that I bought just because I like them. I have no idea why. So
Are they famous?
That's the quirky Gary fact right
Yeah,
there.
it's a-
I mean,
Yeah.
did a musician
So
play them?
the guy's got a full
I have
band
no
there,
idea.
but doesn't know how to play anything.
He's like, all right, guys, let's go.
I thought maybe they were famous, you know,
Oh,
played by someone.
I just know it annoys the hell out of my wife though. So I know
That's one way to get
So-
out.
Oh, man. Trevor?
You know, I'm a product of the '90s, so Pearl
Grunge.
Jam would probably be my number
Yeah,
one. I've
grunge.
probably seen them, I don't know, 10, 12 times
Yeah.
in concert, and it was just during that time that was the band that kind of I loved listening to. It brings me back. You know, for me, every song brings me back a memory of where I was and what I was doing. You know, when I hear that, I can remember, you know, when I was in Fort McMurray when I listened to this song, or on a trip to wherever it is. You know, I really do enjoy the music.
Perfect, perfect. Well, this is bringing us up to our ending segment, and there's just only one other question I'm going to ask, and all three of you get to answer it.
I better have a drink for this.
Yeah,
He's getting really
yeah,
serious
yeah,
on
I
us.
think probably drink's always good. And I hate to see you drink alone.
Well, thank you.
This is apple juice. Okay,
Missy.
ending segment. What did you think about this podcast? And how do you think we could improve it?
picnic.
I want to go first.
Play
Go
nice
ahead,
boys.
Go ahead.
No, I defer to Gary.
All right, Gary.
Defers.
The number one is couch. Gotta get in the couch.
Sugar, I knew you were going to take mine.
We're talking about getting.
Hang on, this is great.
We almost had a new
California
couch.
You can't
We almost had a new couch, but it never fell off the pickup truck in front of me. I definitely got that one
Did
because
you
I
pick
thought
this one up at the 710 is where you got it, eh?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in all seriousness, I've had the luxury of being around when a couple of the other ones were being filmed. I've watched them all, obviously, and
Well, you're an executive producer here.
yeah, that's right. I'm
I've
involved.
still been wondering what that,
And,
what that
but,
means.
But the feedback,
Royalties.
the feedback's been really, really positive. I mean, we've had some great guests: Rob Phillips, Randy Gouliat, the president of the ATA. A lot of people are really interested to see what we're doing here. So, I'm happy to be on here, and I think it's great.
Well, I do want to say something too, though. I mean, the job that you guys have done putting this together and organizing it and putting it together, it's not my cup of tea, honestly, but I tell you, my hat's off to you. You guys have done a great job.
Well, Marcos and Natalia have done the greatest part of it all, and
Hats
I
off to
really,
you guys.
I really
Thank you.
give a little clapping here. Missy?
It's been a great, positive experience. I think it helps be among friends.
Yeah.
I think you can tell we all work well together, we have a good time.
And the couch, right?
And the couch is horrible. It's really bad. So anyway, yes, thank you for having us.
Well, thank you for taking the time out of your busy day. I mean, this was kind of a little relaxation too, after all that we've been through in the last 16 weeks of getting everything going, and having a successful event yesterday was just a top off, and and it went flawlessly along. The luncheon was great. I have to. Reina Cervantes was our singer, and you heard her sing some of the national anthem, I think, during part of this podcast, during one of our public service announcements for CIE Manufacturing Incorporated. And we had a luncheon, and a bunch of the guys were over in one area sitting, and food was done, and they were just sipping on their drinks and all, and they asked her if she would sing for them, and she came over and she sang a cappella phenomenally. I just want to give her a shout out. We're going to have her coming around and doing our Christmas parties and everything else, and a bright young lady too. I got to find out that she has a marketing degree, and she basically asked a lot of questions, got interested in the company, and I went back over and was doing some work in the afternoon. I came back over here. She was in the studio, and Mark was going to do some recording with her, right? Yeah, so
Really good.
we're all set up for it, so it's great. I think it's a very, very win-win situation. So thank you all for being here. To end the show, as always, because everybody says, Frank, why do you wear a tie? It's like old-fashioned. The old guy here is, set in his ways. But actually, when I take this tie off, it's the end of the show, and at the end of my uniform, that is the business uniform. And so it goes up here on this wonderful, I just love, and this last tie was the Christmas tie.
Yeah.
So next to Christmas tie is this striped tie. And
First one
Missy
in
was asking me
2020.
earlier, she says, are the ties that you don't like the ones that go up here? I say, no, these are the ties that are making this a lampshade. And absolutely, I think it's beautiful. Ties. So, thank you very much. And hats off to you. And one more champagne toast here. Oh, it's not champagne.
Ginger ale.
Ginger ale. And I'll tell you what, this is aged ginger ale too. Welcome to this podcast end, and look forward to the next one.